Хареса ли ви на перперкон?
Не. Защото мама мрънкаше и не можах да видя нищо.
С положителни емоции, с повдигнато настроение, адреналина беше на ниво по едно време.
Абсолютно.
Имахме
Просто перфектно.
перфектна емоция.
No? Hi everyone, and welcome to my first ever video here on YouTube. My name is Kirill Dimitrov, but everyone calls me Kiko. When I was graduating high school, I decided to go study abroad, more specifically in Coventry University in the UK. For the last 3 years, my life has changed a lot. I've grown in many ways due to challenges I met along the way. But I wouldn't have been able to overcome them if I hadn't met my friends. We were doing the same course in university, so I was spending almost every day with them. We were studying together, working together, and partying when we could. They helped me through a lot of hardships, so I have grown accustomed to them being there with and for me. In Bulgaria, things hadn't changed a lot from when I left. My closest friends were still there for me. My city, Burgas, was blossoming and becoming even more beautiful every time I went back. And most importantly, my family. The most important people in my life were safe and okay. But things took a turn when we heard news about a new virus that had started spreading in China. COVID-19 they called it. It was very unclear what was gonna happen from then on. There wasn't much information still, and people were not taking it seriously. I remember seeing a video on YouTube about what the situation in China was like. There were medical workers crying out helplessly, people laying on the streets, whole families getting wielded inside their homes so they couldn't escape and spread the virus. I felt awful for them, but I was more scared for my family. Every time I came back, there was always something to do. We went on trips together, we were hiking, going to the mountainside, witnessing beautiful views and spending quality time together, meeting new people. But now, there were bigger things to worry about. What if this disease spread? What will happen to them? What will happen to me? I began self-isolating weeks before they announced the lockdown. People in the UK were ignorant of the significance of the virus. They were waving it off, saying it will pass, it's just like a cold. I went to the store close to my house and the cashier wasn't wearing gloves or a mask. People were going about, going to work, getting together. But I knew things were about to take a massive turn, and they did. After having 2 of my flights cancelled, I finally managed to go home on the 29th of March. The plane ride was a bit different from what I was used to. We were handed out quarantine declarations when we boarded the plane. There wasn't much information on the sheets about how the quarantine itself was, but rather I had to fill out my personal information and address. I was traveling with my housemate Nadia, with whom I had lived with in the UK, and we were going to spend the next 14 days together in her grandmother's flat, which at the time I didn't know lacked internet connection and had barely any cell reception. The first few days seemed pretty normal. I was spending most of my time on the terrace, in the sun. There wasn't much else to do, except for eating and doing my assignments, which I realized would be impossible due to the lack of internet connection. I was reading through previously saved literature and she was playing games on her phone and listening to music, playing the same song, over and over and over again. So we spent our times in separate rooms. After a few more days, however, I was beginning to feel the restraint of this quarantine. I was seeing people walking outside, and I was starting to feel as if I was in some kind of prison, as if I had done something wrong. I was used to spending most of my time outside, taking walks, meeting people, having fun. I was missing the communication, the interaction, the joy and the memories. This was the longest period in my life where I had been all alone with myself and my thoughts. And it gave me time to think about life a lot. I had time to reflect on my actions, my habits, and the direction I was taking in life. I knew what I wanted to do. I had planned to go on a work and travel program in the US in the upcoming summer, and after coming back, I was going to continue with my studies and apply for a master's course. But my plans had to drastically change now, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. Nadia and I weren't ready for what happened on the 7th day of the quarantine. She had been coughing lightly, but she didn't feel like she should tell me because she thought it was due to climate change. However, she had been working in the UK for the past month, and she was exposed to a lot of contact with people. That same night, when her temperature rose to 38.6 degrees, I knew something was wrong. I didn't film her a lot because a camera in her face was the last thing she needed. But she was scared, crying and begging it wasn't the virus. I had to be there for her, but I couldn't. My heart was racing, my mind was going to awful places, and I was scared. For her and for myself. I couldn't ask anyone what to do. She didn't want me to tell her family, and this was a lot to ask. I've known them my whole life. I've known her my whole life. How was I supposed to keep something like that from them? I didn't know what was gonna happen to her, nor what was gonna happen to me. I went on the far end of the terrace where there was a little bit of cell reception, and I contacted emergency services immediately. The signal was breaking up, and all I heard was them saying I should give her something for the temperature and take her to her GP on the next day. They probably hadn't heard it when I said we were in quarantine. And that's when my first panic attack happened. At the time, I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was that my heart was racing. It was going to explode. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was suffocating. There was nothing I could do to help us. So I just sat in that corner and prayed this nightmare would just stop. That I would just wake up in my bed, but I didn't. When my panic attack passed, I felt dizzy, weak. I was barely conscious, but I couldn't fall asleep. So I stayed there until morning. Even though our conversation on the phone had broken up, I did understand that I needed to bring Nadia's temperature down. So I gave her an aspirin and I waited. After a day or so, she was starting to look a lot better, but things were not the same for me. But the trauma I had endured that night did not stay behind in this flat. It followed me. I was getting multiple panic attacks every day for a week. I started taking herbs to calm myself down, and they started working, but I wasn't myself. I was damaged. I had never experienced anything like this before. I was used to dealing with my problems by myself or seek help from my friends. But I would always try to avoid worrying my parents, as they had enough on their plates already. But I couldn't work on my assignments. Every time I would get a panic attack, I would just run to the toilet and wait for it to pass. That was the only way I knew how to deal with them. But my family soon noticed. Since then, they and my friends have helped me and are helping me tremendously in my path to recovery. Nadia recovered fully from her cold and she was back on her feet. And now I've been experiencing fewer and fewer panic attacks. Even though neither one of us had the virus, I created this video to help the ones affected by the situation know that they're not alone in this. We're all in it together, and as long as we have hope and we help each other through this, it will all eventually pass. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. We just need to keep on going. If you want to find more information or helpful resources about the virus and current situation, visit the World Health Organization's website, www.who.int, and look for all the situation updates and advice for public. Stay safe. Stay home.